Hey guys, welcome to the last chapter of Elizabeth in England, Trouble at Home and Abroad. So, what do Catholics view of Elizabeth? Well, the Pope had excommunicated Elizabeth. She was no longer part of the Catholic Church. This means that it was fine to kill her, and the Pope was willing to forgive and offer forgiveness to anyone who did. Her religious settlement was the idea of being tolerant towards Protestants and Catholics. She kept some ideas of Catholicism, for example, the vestments, but she didn't keep their mass. Her main aim was to obviously reduce the divide between Protestantism and Catholicism. Her actual supremacy declared her as the official governor of the church rather than the head. So she was already tolerant of this. She wasn't declaring her as a supreme ruler. She was just a governor. Actual supremacy, it was released a Book of Commons. So this was written in English. It compromised of Protestant beliefs as well as Catholic beliefs. And yeah, the Bible was also written in English, allowing new ideas to develop. And recompenses and fines were issued to people who didn't attend the religious ceremonies, as well as to the Treason Act, which who said that anyone who owned Catholic items, for example, rosaries, it was illegal. And the 1581 laws said it was treason to convert to Catholicism. The 1585 Act said that any priest that was ordained after a certain amount of period was a traitor now, and traitors faced death. 1593 restricted the Catholics and the free movement, so they were only allowed to go 5 meters in their limits. Puritans were strong believing Protestants. They were really critical of Elizabeth's reign because they expected more from her, considering she was a Protestant herself. They didn't like how she was so tolerant to Catholics. They held prophesizing. Prophesizings were meetings, regular meetings that were held by Elizabeth, and they criticized her rule. And Elizabeth obviously felt threatened by this because they were obviously Protestants that were critical of her. However, Puritans were in her court as well. For example, Robert Dudley and William Cecil, who were also Puritans themselves. The Throckmorton plot involved Throckmorton and Queen Mary. So Mary would be the focus for Catholic rebellion, and Throckmorton would help free her. Well, this plan was uncovered by Walsingham very quickly, and Throckmorton was arrested. The Babington plot, this led to the execution of Mary. So Sir Babington and Mary's letters were uncovered and uncoded by Walsingham, and this provided enough evidence for obviously treason, which is punishable by death. This led to Mary's trial and execution. Now, Elizabeth didn't put the seal, so she didn't fully seal her death statement. However, Parliament and other members, her close advisors, did it for her, and they were punished for this. She even wrote a letter to, I think it was James, Mary's son, asking for forgiveness. However, not many changes took place. England was already in war with Spain, and France was still an ally. So nothing really changed. She was just really fearful. Mary, Queen of Scots, as I said before, she was pro-French, the alternative queen. She was Catholic. Her marriage with Lord Darley and having her hair meant that she was legitimate and a very fit queen to go on the throne. She was everything that anyone wanted. And she was a focus of rebellions and Catholic revolts since she was in England. So now we're going to go on the causes of conflict with Spain. Now, Spain was a Catholic country, so again, we already know that this is going to cause religious disputes, as well as the fact that Philip proposed to Elizabeth for marriage. Elizabeth refused. She didn't accept it for a long time, mainly because of the fact that she didn't want her marriage to be like her sister's failure. Secondly, the Northern Rebellion in Netherlands. So Netherlands, we had the rebellion. Before it was mainly about Protestants arguing about the taxes, how it soon turned into a religious dispute. And Elizabeth thought it was her responsibility to help those Protestants, and so she allowed English volunteers to go and help, as well as providing equipment for them. This obviously angered Spain. Next was the Sea Beggars. Sea Beggars were these ships. Elizabeth allowed them to seek refuge in English waters. The Irish rebels. So the rebels in the Netherlands. So obviously this angered Spain. last but not least was about like pirateering. So Drake, he raided Cadiz, which was an important Spanish port, lots of wealth and riches. This led to obviously Spain getting angry because his wealth is being taken, and it didn't help the fact that Elizabeth knighted these pirateers, and she gave them licenses to continue with their work and praised them for their heroic natures. William of Orange was the Duke rebel. He was like the leader of the rebels, and he was assassinated by the Spanish Catholics. And this was the main factor that led to the war, because she directly was involved in it. She sent Robert Dudley and she sent troops to go and help those Protestants. So this was seen as an act of war. So what happened in the Spanish Armada? Well, the plan was to send a fleet of ships to England. They will land in the Netherlands, stop and get troops. So the Spanish Armada set off. There were 130 ships versus 200 ships on England's side. So they set off, and they only had a few weeks of supply. They also had badly led Duke of Medina, who wasn't experienced at all, despite having several experienced captains. Then at Calais, there was a Calais attack. So where they were meant to meet up, so at the Netherlands, they were meant to collect the troops. They weren't there. This allowed this crescent formation to be broken, allowing them to become weaker and not reform as a group and become stronger. The battle, and it also involved the 8 fire ships and Drake's pirateering skills to come in handy. The Battle of the Grave Lines involved the continuous bombardment, not allowing them to regroup again, and also the weather turned against them, so it was very strong storms that battered the ships, blew them off course, and this was known as a Protestant wind, and Elizabeth thought that God was on her side. So the reasons for failure: as I said before, the English technology, more manoeuvrable ships, they were prepared for land battle and sea battle, whereas Spain was really prepared for land battle. They had the best cannons at the back of their ship and the best equipment at the back of their ships. They weren't ready. As well as English tactics, the continuous bombardment, the Spanish mistakes, the Duke of Medina bringing the wrong cannons to fire, not being prepared for sea battle, and also the weather and the luck. So the weather turned against them as well, and the Spanish ran out of food.